These two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
Reckless speculation. Reckless speculation.
Welcome in to a Reckless Speculation Thursday here. It's a Scoop Thursday with our friend Darren Doogie Wolfson from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department. Inside information and educated speculation, sometimes non-educated speculation if it's coming from me or Judd. AJ in for Declan. But Doogie, happy Reckless Speculation Thursday. Hopefully you can open your door and not be snowed in too badly here today.
Well, Phil, if we can, let's go for like hours, because Mrs. W is already saying, hey, the mailman is due here in the next couple hours. Go shovel him a path, which inevitably I will do, but the longer I can prolong that, I'm all for. Yeah, we're here in the West Metro. It's like 12 to 14-ish inches, maybe 15 if you go back to Monday, whatever we got on Monday, 1 inch. So, yeah, maybe not quite the 28 inches that some people predicted, but still one whopper of a storm. Happy Reckless Speculation Thursday. Always appreciate Thursdays joining you guys. Busy week, crazy week, right? Fat Tuesday into Ash Wednesday into Reckless Speculation Thursday. Going back to Tuesday, maybe I was drunk. Maybe I can blame Fat Tuesday. 2 corrections. So I was on with Judd and Declan. Happy to see that Declan made it to North Carolina, that his flight got out. I was just texting with a friend with the Gopher baseball team. They're supposed to fly down to Fort Myers at 3:30. Right now, the flight is still on as scheduled, but best of luck to them flying to Fort Myers later today. But 2 corrections from Tuesday. One, a minor one. I'll start with the minor one. Isaac Asama. So he is the Gophers basketball team's #1 2024 recruiting target. He took his official visit to the U over the weekend. I mispronounced his name on Tuesday. I Zoomed with him last night, got full clarification on how to say his name. I will also tell you, based off that Zoom conversation from Wednesday, I will be shocked if he doesn't eventually commit to the University of Minnesota. Butler is in his mix, Xavier, some other high major type programs, but there is mutual love. The Gophers with Isaac, Isaac with the Gophers. The other correction that I think will capture your attention a bit more. So I said on Tuesday the Twins were not in on Luke Voigt. Some additional information came in. I'm told the Twins made Luke Voigt a major league offer. He instead accepted a minor league offer from the Milwaukee Brewers. So before the Twins signed Donovan Solano, 1 year, $2 million. He can earn up to $250,000 in incentives based on plate appearances. They made a comparable offer to Luke Voigt. But Luke Voigt told the Twins no. He told Milwaukee yes. So those are the 2 corrections from Tuesday.
Interesting. Okay. Can we get into some Viking speculation with you here, Dukes? We just want
to
throw it to you. We are less than a week away from the NFL Combine. We will have the league year in free agency here in about 3 weeks from now. On Purple Daily today, Judd and I are going to play code general managers here, and we're just going to do the entire offseason. We're going to cut, extend, trade, free agency. We're going to do a mock draft simulation. We're going to fix the Vikings. Where do you want to start? Are you hearing anything? Are there any tea leaves to be read about player movement? We've seen, so the Vikings have one of the 3 or 4 worst cap situations in the league. Other teams like the Bucks and like the Saints in that bin have started to redo contracts, cut players, etc. So where are the Vikings at right now?
Yeah, I mean, Phil, changes are coming. It's a matter of how many. Now, like the simplest move to create a bunch of cap space, you restructure Brian O'Neill's contract. So expect that to come. Now, last Thursday, we brought up Zadarius Smith's house hitting the market. Now, that officially hit the market on Monday. Here's what I'm told on that, because we attempted to read some tea leaves on Zadarius placing his home in the East Metro, Southeast Metro on the market. I'm told the home is outdated. Why he ever bought it in the first place last May is beyond me. So it's possible he stays. He's just looking for an upgrade. The home just doesn't fit his needs. And so that's the whole reasoning behind Zadarius Smith putting his house on the market.
It's less than $1 million, right? Isn't it like it's not even a 7-figure home. I mean, come on. What are we doing, Zadarius?
Yeah, so like maybe he ends up getting released or traded. Maybe he doesn't. He doesn't know. at this point. I can tell you his camp doesn't know, but him putting that house on the market is as simple as he is looking for an upgrade.
So the home is being cut. It's being waived. Like it's an actual casualty of Z. Interesting stuff.
It makes it
Although
easier
there's
too
money
for the
guaranteed
Vikings,
in
right?
that
Now his house is
transaction,
already on the market,
point.
so we can say goodbye.
Good point. It's a cousin's house, fully guaranteed. He's got to pay the whole freight.
Absolutely. Otherwise, Phil, I mean, I've checked this week on, whether there's been any traction on the Adam Thielen situation. I'm told nothing quite yet. A couple others, I've been told nothing quite yet, but those conversations clearly will pick up. Many league people head into Indianapolis as soon as Sunday. Then Monday, Tuesday, it really ramps up. Certainly Wednesday into Thursday, 1 week from now. So that's when a lot of chatter will take place. The Vikings will sit down with Kirk Cousins' representation, Dalvin Cook's representation, go up and down the list. So a lot of that stuff will be hashed out in person starting next week.
Two things I'm curious about when the combine does start. One is when it starts to emerge, the players that the Vikings just plan on divorcing themselves from, because I'm sure there will be some where there will be talks about restructures, and if that doesn't work, they might be gone. But there have to be players that they're just like, we're done with. We're not restructuring. That's my first one. The second one that I think could emerge, and it's not going to be a ton of names, but it could be a few names, is when we start to find out what positions and what free agents in particular they might target. So like at cornerback, I think some names will really start to emerge at the combine, because like that's the one thing we have speculated on, but we don't know yet. It always, Dukes, feels like the combine is a point where we get at least a couple of solid leads to see the direction in which this team is going to go and what they prioritize as, like, are they going after more veteran guys in their third contracts, or the smart thing, which is to try to sign guys coming out of that first contract so you really can capture the best years for a player.
Well, I mean, like a linebacker like Edmonds, right? Is it Tremaine Edmonds? Like, you can connect those logical dots. I'll give you another. Now, there is interest in re-signing Garrett Bradbury, but if they fail on that front, the other good center, there's a couple, but McGovern. Is it Connor McGovern? McGovern.
Jets, yeah.
Yeah, who has, there's some mutual interest there. He's a Midwestern guy, I'm told. Like, that would be a name to keep an eye on if the Bradbury negotiations go south. So those would be two instant names that I would say, like, if you want to look at guys right now, maybe this fits more the Reckless Speculation Thursday theme. Maybe I'll be able to advance a little bit more, in depth, intel-wise next week. But those are two names that I think you can have on your radar.
By the way, according to Pro Football Focus, they now have like the top 200 free agents and contract projections and whatnot. Bradbury and Connor McGovern, in terms of their overall rank among all free agents, McGovern is 74th, Bradbury is 91st. McGovern's the second ranked free agent center, Bradbury is the third ranked, and McGovern is set to maybe sign a 3-year, $7.5 million per year deal. Bradbury, 3-year, $6.5 million. So, like, pretty comparable contracts. McGovern's a little, this is the other thing too. McGovern is almost 30 years old. He's going to be 30 years old when the season starts. So if you thought that Bradbury was going to come back healthy, but these are, Judd and I are going to try to find a path to at least carve out enough money later today on Purple Daily to sign a couple impact free agents. And it just kind of depends on, does cornerback make sense? Are you going to have to go sign a linebacker because you don't trust what you have? What about this Dalvin Tomlinson situation? Do you know anything? So both sides decided to move the void date back to March 15th. And so if an extension isn't reached, the Vikings would then have to eat $7.5 million in dead cap, which they already have a lot of dead cap coming from other players in the next couple of years. Can you shine any light on whether or not Dalvin Tomlinson and the Vikings will reach an extension? What all goes into that?
Well, sure. I mean, there's definitely dialogue taking place. I mean, Tomlinson was really, really good this past season. Like, you can justify giving him pretty good money, right? So there have been conversations. Yeah, Field Yates has a really good contact in the league office in New York. And so Field Yates of ESPN is all over a lot of these contractual type situations. And he was on top of it earlier this week. I mean, I can't really add much more insight than what Field put out there about what you just laid out, Phil, about the date being pushed back to March 15th, but that signals that there is mutual interest. Tomlinson certainly wants to be here. I remember having a nice conversation with him in December, then again in early January about his desire to remain here for the next few years. So, unless he was lying to me, which I guess is possible, but just reading his body language, the way he was smiling, I got the sense that Tomlinson would like to find a way to remain here. And I can tell you the Vikings front office would like to make that happen. It just comes down to, can they meet at a reasonably decent number that satisfies both Dalvin and the Vikings salary cap situation. But I would tell you, Phil, those talks are ongoing.
Dukes, that feels like one that makes sense, though. So Bradbury, I'm a little reluctant on because, one, he had one good year, and it always concerns me when a guy like that has a good contract year, but everything up until then is fairly dicey. And I also think that Bradbury might get paid, which, by the way, if I'm the Vikings, I'm not paying him. Like, I'll bring him back at a fair rate, but if somebody steps up and is like, oh, okay, he was a first-round pick, he is set to go, I'm not going to pay that type of salary. Tomlinson, I think I would probably, I wouldn't break the bank, but I think he's a guy that you'd be a lot more confident in the stability. I would just hate to have Bradbury come back with a long-term lucrative contract now and lapse back into what we saw previously. In Tomlinson's case, I'm not afraid of that, and he's not the perfect player, but I do think that he's a productive guy, and I would also be curious in Tomlinson's case to see what he can do in Brian Flores' system.
Well, yes, absolutely, in Brian Flores' system. Dalvin's got a little bit of position flexibility as well, right? I mean, time spent in a 4-3 and a 3-4, right? I mean, he can line up, in some different spots there, interior of the defensive line. We're talking about Garrett just being a center. You're not moving him to guard or anything like that. I'm curious, Judd, would you do what PFF is suggesting? If the Vikings could retain Garrett Bradbury at those numbers, 3 years, 6.5 per, because that seems actually a little bit high to me. Like, I know there's interest in retaining Garrett, but I don't even know if the Vikings would go that high.
So Spotrac has their own projection. Get this one. 4 years, 47.7 total, an AAV of 11.9.
Whoa, okay. That's
which
different.
I wouldn't get near. What you just said,
yeah, I would be shocked if the Vikings touch that. I mean, I'm telling you, I'll be surprised if they approach 6.5. I think, maybe in that ballpark, but maybe not quite 6.5. Certainly not 11 and change.
6.5 would not knock my socks off. I could probably stomach that one, but if he finds one team that's like, dude, you know what? Good year, an important position, will pay you. I'm probably out very quickly if I'm the Vikings.
I mean, I'll be curious to see what, the division rival Chicago Bears do, right? With all that cap space. We saw it last year with Jacksonville signing multiple free agents, impactful free agents. Who exactly are the Bears signing? Because the Bears are going to sign at least, 3, if not 4 or 5 pretty big names. What positions do the Bears target? Would they have some interest in plucking a guy or two here from the Vikings?
Just because this is in the spirit of reckless speculation Thursday lifestyle.
Reckless speculation.
I have had a few, I don't know if you've seen some of this, Judd, but some Vikings fans on Twitter and email over the last couple weeks, ever since some steam came out that maybe the Bears would be interested in trading Justin Fields 2 years into that rookie scale contract, but, they could pick any number of quarterbacks with where they're drafting, obviously, and sort of restart that clock. Should the Vikings have interest in a guy like Justin Fields via trade? And to that, I will say two things. Number one, the tax you'd have to pay in the division seems aggressive. I think if the Bears had interest in trading Fields, they wouldn't be doing so. Like, they clearly like him, but maybe not enough to, give him a big contract in a couple of years. But on the chance that he blows up and becomes this amazing player, do they want that to happen in their division? So they would probably not trade him in the division. Number two, I don't know about you guys. When it comes to life after Kirk, I'd rather just draft the next quarterback, rookie scale contract, start from zero. That's why I like the Trey Lance stuff. Justin Fields, I don't think is a possibility, but like Trey Lance could be a possibility. Those options interest me a lot less because then you feel pressure even more to play them right away. You could go, if Anthony Richardson falls, you could draft him, easily sit him for a full season behind Kirk, develop him, still have 4 years of team control before you have to worry about a big bloated contract. So I don't know where you guys fall on sort of this life after Kirk, Fields, Lance, rookie, all these options out there, but that's kind of where I'm at. Plus, you don't have to give up draft cap. Like, the amount of picks you'd have to trade to get a guy like Fields or something, it's just a non-starter for me.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's a non-starter for the Vikings, Phil. Like, I'll be shocked if Justin Fields gets traded here. Now, remember, pre-draft, April of 2021.
That's why it's relevant.
That's why it's relevant. Yeah, remember how much Rick Spielman, but not just Rick, some other people that remain in the Vikings front office, how big of fans they were of Justin Fields. There was legitimate interest in finding a way pre-draft, specifically that Thursday night draft night, first round, in finding a way to move up to draft Justin Fields. But right now, I don't foresee any sort of trade happening. I mean, the Vikings are going to draft a quarterback either this year or next year. Not like I'm going out on a limb suggesting that. You know, when I can offer up more information, if I can pinpoint, okay, more likely this year compared to next year, I'll do that. I'm just telling you, sometime in the next 2 years, they are going to draft a quarterback. I'll be curious, starting next week, like how many, formal interviews do they end up with some of these quarterbacks? Like the Kentucky quarterback. Like, he, to me, screams Kevin O'Connell. Like, you hear enough stuff about the Kentucky kid. You bring up Richardson's name, but look at the Kentucky kid. Like, that's the quarterback Kevin O'Connell's looking for, right? So, I don't think he gets much beyond pick 7 Las Vegas, right? So I don't know how you would maneuver to get him. I'm not even quite sure Richardson has much of a chance, Phil, to get to where the Vikings are in the early 20s. But sure, like this year or next year, like I'm telling you, like I'll be shocked. I would bet a lot of money that the Vikings are going to draft a quarterback, so it's just a matter of when.
And what's going to be fun, too, is what their path is going to be to get there. So, like, because, I'm going to assume that they're not going to, in 2023, fall off the table and win 2 or 3 games, right? So, like, what is that path? Is that path trading up? Is that path to look for a guy in a trade? I just think that there are so many things we don't know about Kwesi and O'Connell. Like with Rick, you sort of knew what Rick was, right? Like Rick liked Fields. The Bears said, well, we do too. And the Bears got more aggressive, and that didn't really shock you. So, like with Rick, we sort of by the end knew what he was probably going to do or not do. With Kwesi, we don't know. And at some point in time, is KOC going to say, you know what, this is the guy that I want to pull the trigger on, and I want this guy, and I don't care what we have to do, we have to go get him. So, like, there's just so many variables and unanswered questions here that we can certainly recklessly speculate about that, but we aren't going to know until the Vikings are actually up against it and say, screw it, this is the move to make.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it'll take a few years to develop some patterns. I will tell you, based on his first draft class, it certainly looks like he likes those big school players, right? He's not looking for, a player from William and Mary, per se. Right now, that could flip as soon as this draft, right? But you look at, Georgia, Clemson, Oklahoma, all those schools, LSU, like they're going to target, it looks like, players from those large schools, specifically the SEC and ACC and Big 12, and Big 10 for that matter.
Yeah. By the way, just for the listeners here, as we're sitting here Thursday writing out this snowstorm, but Friday through Sunday, we should have no snow, weather maybe getting better, which means you might start thinking about golf season on the horizon here. The Choice Bank Minnesota Golf Show happening all weekend long at the Minneapolis Convention Center. And Judd, you and I are going to be hosting a couple Purple Daily Town Hall Q&As inside Hall B of the Minneapolis Convention Center. So that's going to be Friday, tomorrow at 2 o'clock and Saturday at 2 o'clock. Tickets are just $12 at minnesotagolfshow.com. minnesotagolfshow.com. Come hang out with us 2 o'clock Friday, 2 o'clock Saturday. Drink a couple adult beverages. Throw some Viking speculation out there. We'll have the recorders out there for podcast purposes. And come hang out with us at the Choice Bank Minnesota Golf Show. Okay, any other...
Phil, you need to track down Adam Thielen for the golf show. Remember, he was on with you. Was that a few years ago?
He sunk that like 100-foot putt, yeah.
Competition.
He joined us?
Maybe he didn't join you, but he was there. He was taking part in the longest putt competition. He's an avid golfer now. Florida, in many ways, is now home base for Adam, for his family, not here in the Twin Cities. So I don't even know if he's in town.
Zero chance, unless he's being paid to appear, and I don't know it, at the golf show this weekend, right?
I do hear he loves our show. I've heard he thinks our show is great. I'm sure he thinks that our
Judd's been taking cheap shots at Adam Thielen for
not true.
5 years now.
They're not cheap shots.
I've tried to tell Judd, Phil, from this last year, like Adam wasn't healthy. He just won.
Yeah, but
now,
he's 32.
That doesn't mean there's a whole lot of football up there.
Healthy.
We can have that conversation, but like the knee was bothering him for large portions of the year. So
yeah, because
you look at the
32.
PFF separation numbers and all that. I get it. Adam did not have a productive 22 season, but I still wonder if there's still at least one more good year there. Like heck, I'd love to see him. Who wouldn't? If you're a receiver with Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, I think the Chiefs could get 10 touchdowns out of Adam very easily.
Yeah, I agree.
And you, Doogie, so.
Probably.
What?
You're right.
I said, and you.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes could throw 10 touchdowns to Darren as well.
Yeah, I've got, soft enough hands where
Mahomes, you can catch the ball.
I don't need to create separation, just throw the ball.
Exactly.
You put it in the right window, I'll catch it.
Well, so I guess just to try and put myself in Adam's cleats here for a second. So he's essentially saying, hey, I didn't complain about it, but I wasn't 100% healthy. That's people think that I've fallen off a cliff. There's more, my injuries are going to heal up to a certain extent, but with his wife and some of the things that she has said very publicly on Instagram, even Adam has had 3 weeks worth of chances doing media on Pat McAfee show and everywhere else to sort of say, well, actually, but he says the right things in terms of I want to retire as a Viking, but it's very obvious with his media tour, with what his wife has been saying, that he wants to be featured more in an offense. He doesn't just want to be sort of cast aside here toward the end of his career. So do you have any idea what do the Thielens want out of all of this?
Well, no, I don't exactly know what they want. I've not had a conversation with Adam. I typically do catch up with him at some point in the offseason, but I haven't done that quite yet. I will continue to say that I will not be surprised if Adam is playing elsewhere in 2023. That I will say.
Yeah. All right, let's empty the rest of the scoop bag here, Doogie. What else you got for us?
Reckless speculation.
All right, on Donovan Solano. So I had at the beginning, the Twins made the offer to Luke Voigt. He says no. They end up with Solano. So that points to, especially after making Voigt the offer, that the move is more, well, certainly depth. I had a Twins official tell me depth, but also Alex Kirilloff insurance, because people have been wondering, well, what about Jorge Polanco insurance? Right? Had the knee injury, missed a bunch of time at the end of last year. Are we sure it's not Jorge Polanco's second base insurance? To some extent, sure. Donovan Solano can play second base, but I wouldn't be shocked if he gets a bulk of his time at first base, or he's just a late inning pinch hitter type, maybe starts 1 to 2 days a week max. But I'm led to believe it's more insurance for Kirilloff compared to anybody else. Just Kirilloff coming off the major wrist surgery. Doing well, though, not taking BP in the cage quite yet, but able to swing a bat, has taken swings going back a couple months, participating in all the defensive drills. I mean, the Twins are encouraged by how he looks, but you still need to have an insurance policy in place. So Solano offers up that.
No. Yeah, it's kind of a, pun intended, out of left field type signing, but the guy can hit, he can platoon, he can play a bunch of different positions. So I don't know. Judd's really sour on the Twins, Doogie, but I kind of like what they've done this offseason.
I'm not really sour.
Starting to come back around.
I'm not really sour. I'm skeptical. I'm naturally skeptical because of the fact that they deserve that, and I'm not buying in yet. I actually think that they made some good moves. I hope that the story that came out of spring training a couple days ago holds to be true, which is that with Archer and Bundy gone, Rocco now really wants to extend his starters a third time through. If that is true, and with the starters that they have, provided they stay healthy, Doogie, I think that could be a positive move. I'm just naturally skeptical of a team that fell apart and a team that hasn't really had the answers at times, when I think the answers have been sitting there in front of them and they ignore them.
Well, I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, we need to see it to believe it. Yeah, my colleague Joe Schmidt, he's still down there, can't fly back today. Although, actually, maybe a slight chance. I just got a text. Might be able to fly back today, otherwise he'll fly back tomorrow. But he's been embedded with the Twins all week, this first week of full squad spring training. So he was in that mix. We had that sound from Rocco on Channel 5 here in the Twin Cities earlier this week about, hey, very open-minded to having guys go deeper into games. That's another, though, Judd. I'll believe it when I see it. It sounds great now. It goes back to Tuesday. Phil, I brought this up on Tuesday. So Joe Ryan is experimenting with a new pitch. Tyler Mahle is experimenting with a new pitch.
The Eliminator.
March 30th, come April 15th. Are we really going to see those pitches when the games truly count? Like we always hear, it's like the bingo card, right? Check the box of pitcher working on new pitch.
The gyro
on
ball.
February 23rd. We always hear that this time of the year. Then come April and May, it's like, okay, well, where is that pitch? Right? So, like, you hear a lot of stuff this time of the year. To me, it's a lot of noise until I see it actually come to fruition. But sure, I mean, Sonny Gray is very vocal about wanting to go deeper into games. Pablo Lopez, his track record suggests he pitches into the 7th inning. So, yes, I sure hope, based on some track records, not necessarily Gray in 22, but Gray going back to when he was with the Reds, there's a track record with some of these guys being able to pitch into the 7th inning, seeing a lineup a third time. So I hope what Rocco says is true, but I'm just telling you, I need to see it truly come April to really believe it.
And I'd like to also broach one more thing that's not getting talked about at all. And it's the type of thing that at least deserves acknowledgement. So we got the traditional, let's pick a twin who's lost some weight and celebrate it. Jose Miranda showed up at Twins Fest. Oh my God, he quit eating hot dogs. Look how good he looks. But you know what? No matter what you say about him, Gio Urshela at third base, and I know the metrics didn't love him, but the eye test I thought was very kind. Like, he made a lot of plays, and I was pretty impressed by him. Jose Miranda at third base, what are you going to get there?
Yeah,
because he's not, he's not great there. He's not like at first base. The poor guy was a disaster at first because he hadn't played there really. But I mean, these are the type of things that I'm curious about and that don't get broached enough. Which is, where have you created potential holes, or how well does Miranda now going back to third base play, which is going to be a significant thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, heck, how about Urshela in the clutch? They're going to miss some of that clutch hitting. Right, so definitely a question. You look at Miranda's OPS in August, in September, it tailed off from earlier in the season. So there are questions there with Jose Miranda. Heck, maybe losing all that weight could be a bad thing. Maybe he starts to wear down body-wise come August, come September. I hope not. I like the kid a lot, so I'm rooting for him. But yeah, I mean, to me, that's absolutely a question mark. I'm with Phil, though, Judd. Now, it took some luck, right, with Correa swinging and missing with two teams for Correa to end up back here. But when you re-sign Carlos Correa, it's been, to me, whether it's A-, B+, A+, maybe A+ is a stretch, but, somewhere in that range. Like, it's been a very, very productive offseason, and I'm still not buying the Guardians youngsters, all those youngsters last year, duplicating what they did. Maybe they will. But I'm still not on that bandwagon that the Guardians are going to have all that success with those youngsters that they had last year. The White Sox love Dylan Cease, but, God willing, hopefully Liam Hendricks is back sooner rather than later. But, missing Hendricks, losing Abreu, I'm not big on the White Sox. Now, I get it. The White Sox had a bunch of injuries last year. They're trying to maintain health this year right now, knock on whatever. Robert and Anderson and those guys are healthy, but I think the Twins are as good, 1 through 26 as any team in the Central. Certainly not the American League. If we're stacking the American League, 6th, 7th, 8th, cusp, playoff team. But there is an easy path to the playoffs by winning the Central Division. I think the Twins roster 1 through 26 is as good as any.
Reckless
Awesome, dudes. Great stuff. Great stuff today, Doogie. Well done.
The Timberwolves moved back practice today, but I checked with somebody with the Wolves. They believe just about every guy either is back in town or should be back in town by this afternoon. I believe there's one runway open at the airport right now. Guys coming from all over the place.
Clear it out. Clear it out for the Wolves.
It sounds like the Wolves should be okay. Now the question is, when can Charlotte fly into town? When do multiple runways open at the airport? Can the Hornets get to town sometime tonight, or do they need to fly in tomorrow morning? But as of now, Wolves Hornets Target Center tomorrow night, Friday night, is on.
Inside information about your favorite Minnesota sports teams and some good old fun, reckless speculation. Doogie, we'll see you next week, sir.
Okay, sounds good, boys. Go
Thanks,
and shovel.
Dukes.
See ya.
All right, you can check him out,
Yep,
D. Wolfson, KSTP on Twitter, and he's part of the 5 Eyewitness News Sports